In section 2, we are going to talk about circles. So first thing we're going to discuss is what is a circle. So a circle is the set of all points equidistant from a given point called the center. So technically a circle is made, so like if this is your center, a circle is made up of an infinite number of points that are all the same distance from that circle. And all of those points end up being so close that it forms a solid line. And then that distance that they are all, that equidistant that they all are is called your radius. So the equation of a circle, if you have a center with the point HK and a radius R, the equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And this is called the standard equation of a circle. It is the best equation for a circle, mainly because it's easy to identify the center and the radius of your circle, which are the two important things you need in order to write the equation of a circle. So in our first example, we want to know the equation of the circle in our graph. So we need to identify our center and our radius. So first thing I need to do is identify my center. And it's usually pretty obvious like where the middle of the circle is, but there's not really a great way to find the center unless you know 2 points on the circle, and then the center is the point in the middle. So I could use the midpoint formula. Like I have a point here at -2, 3, and I have a second point here at -2, -2, -1. I could use my midpoint formula that we discussed in section 1 to find the center, because the center is exactly in the middle of those 2 points. In this case, it ends up being at -2, 1. So my center is at -2, 1. My radius, I'm then going to go to one of those points on my circle, and I'm going to find its distance. So the distance from -2, 1 to the point -2, 3 is 2. So my radius is 2. So when I put this in my equation, it's always x minus. So I'm going to have x minus -2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 2 squared. Now I don't like to leave it as minus a negative, so I'm going to have x plus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared, and then I'm going to go ahead and square my radius, and I'm going to get 4. And that is the equation that represents this circle. So if I were to take this equation and I would graph it on something like Desmos, I would get this exact circle. So one thing to kind of notice, if you're looking at your points, my x value, because the x value from my center was negative, was a plus inside the parentheses. And then for my y value, it was positive, it ends up being a minus. So just like when we were doing the vertex form of a quadratic formula, of a quadratic, we always did the vertex was the opposite of what was with x for the x coordinate, and then y kept its sign. For circle, it's the opposite for both. So another thing we can do is, if we know where the center is of our circle and we know a point on the circle, we can use that to find our radius. So I know that my circle has a center of 2, 3, and it passes through the point 4, 8. And I want to write the equation of that circle. So I can always graph it and see if I can find the distance, like if it ends up being a point directly vertical or horizontal from my center. But in this case, it's not, which means in order to find my radius, I'm gonna use my distance formula. So I'm gonna let 2, 3 be x1, y1, and then 4, 8 be x2, y2. So then my radius squared equals the square root of 2 minus 4 in parentheses squared plus 3 minus 8 squared. So 2 minus 4 is going to give me negative 2 squared plus 3 minus 8 is negative 5 squared. So I get that negative 2 squared is 4, negative 5 squared is positive 25. So I get r squared is the square root of 29. Now if I wanted to go a step further and actually find my radius, I could, but, sorry, I realized, nope, it should be r equals, not r squared equals. R equals the square root of 29. That's my fault. So r equals the square root of 29. So when I put it in my equation, I'm going to do x minus the x value from my center, 2 squared, plus y minus 3 squared equals, and then I had to take my radius, the square root of 29, and square it. So the reason why I didn't simplify the square root of 29, which is not a perfect square, and I didn't come up with a decimal, is because the equation of a circle squares the radius. And we've discussed this previously, that when I square square root, it cancels. So it's actually easier to go ahead and leave it underneath the square root, because I end up with the equation x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 29. The next thing we're going to discuss is something called the general equation of a circle. So if you have an equation in standard form and you were to distribute it all out, so I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. General form says that you take that standard form, you write it as x minus h, and y minus k, y minus k. You subtract the r squared, you get it set equal to 0. And general equation says do all that distributing. So you get an equation in terms of x squared and y squared. So general equation says if I do all the distributing, I'm going to have x squared plus y squared plus some arbitrary x term and an arbitrary y term plus some constant equal 0. So this is called the general equation for a circle. It's not something that you're typically going to do a lot with, mainly because the only thing you can really tell from the general equation of a circle is that it is a circle. You can't tell where the center is, you can't tell where the radius is, so it's not a very useful form for a circle. So it's not something that I'm going to make you do a lot, but I am going to show you an example of going from standard form to general form. More common type of problem would be given general form, convert it to standard form, which is also something we're going to look at. So I have my equation, x plus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 64. So the first thing I need to do is expand my x plus 2 squared and my y minus 4 squared. Okay. My next step is to distribute in each set of parentheses. So we're going to get x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4 plus y squared minus 4y minus 4y plus 16 equals 64. So when I combine all of my like terms on the left side, I'm going to go ahead and also reorder it. So I want to have x squared plus y squared first, because that's the kind of the part that lets you know, oh, I have a circle here because I have the x squared plus y squared. Combining all of my x terms, I get 4x. Combining my y terms, I get minus 8y. Combining my constants, I get 20. And I'm still equal to 64. And then my last step is to subtract 64. So I get x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 8y minus 44 equals 0. So this is another way to write the equation of a circle that when graphed along with the x plus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 64, they would be the exact same circle. Like I said, it doesn't really do us any good to go from standard form to general form. It's much more common that if we're given an equation in general form, we'll convert it to standard form. That way we can easily graph our circle, we can find the center, and we can find the radius. So that's what we're actually going to do now. So we are going to take the equation, and it's currently written in general form. We're going to convert it to standard form, and we're going to use completing the square, and then we're going to use that equation to graph our circle. So kind of similar to when we were completing the square with a quadratic, our very first step is to move our constant to the other side. So my very first step is going to add 12 to move 12 to the other side. I'm also going to start reordering because I want my x's to be together and my y's to be together. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x plus y squared plus 6y equals 12. Next, I need to do completing the square with both my x squared minus 4x and the y squared plus 6y. So to figure out that value that gives me a perfect square for each of them, I have to do b divided by 2 squared. And they're each going to have their own b value. So like for my x, its b is negative 4. So I'm going to do negative 4 over 2 squared. Then for my y, its b is 6. So we're going to do 6 divided by 2 squared. And just like when we were doing completing the square, if I add that value onto my left side, so x squared minus 4x plus 4, because negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. And I add my 9 to the y squared plus 6y, I also have to add it to my other side. So my other side has to be 12 plus 4 plus 9. So now x squared minus 4x plus 4 is a perfect square. And it's going to factor the same way it did when we were doing regular completing the square. So it always factors as x plus b over 2 squared. And similarly, y would factor as y plus its b over 2 squared. So I'm going to get x, and in this case, because b is negative, it's going to be x minus 2 squared plus, and then for y, its b is positive 6, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, so plus y plus 3 squared equals, and now I'm going to do 12 plus 4 plus 9, which is going to give me 25. So now this is the equation of my circle. X minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 25. So if I want to graph that circle, I need to find its center and its radius. So the center is the opposite of what's with x and y. So if I have x minus 2, that's going to be a positive 2. Y plus 3 is going to be negative 3. The radius, I'm going to take the square root of my constant. So the square root of 25, which is 5. So I'm going to go to the point 2, -3, and that's going to be my center. And then I'm going to plot 4 points on top of that. I'm going to go up 5. I'm going to go down 5. I'm going to go left 5. And I'm going to go right 5. Because those are the easiest points to graph with my circle. Because those are the only ones where I can actually go my distance of 5. And then I just connect those points and I have my circle. And if I were to graph either equation in Desmos, they would look, if not exactly like this, very similar to this circle. Okay. Last example is we want to find the length of the diameter of our circle that is written in general form. So just kind of a refresher, the diameter of a circle is twice the radius. So that means if I can find the radius of the circle, I can just double it and that will give me my diameter. So the only way I'm really going to find my radius is if I put my circle in standard form. So my first step is going to be to subtract that 4. So we have 3x squared, and then I'm going to have minus 12x plus 3y squared equals -4. So 2 things here. There is no y constant, no y term, so there's no like just a number times y. And also, I have numbers in front of x squared and y squared. Now for a circle, the numbers in front of x squared and y squared have to be 1. So after I move that 4 over, I have to divide everything by 3. So that I have x squared minus 4x plus y squared equals -4 over 3. When I do my perfect square part, I don't have to do anything with the y squared because there's no y term being added to it. So I just have to do the -b over 2 squared with the x term, so -4 over 2 squared. So just like our last example, it's 4. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x plus 4 plus y squared equals -4/3 plus 4. So when I'm doing -4/3 plus 4, I will show you that in a second. So x squared minus 4x plus 4 is going to factor as x minus 2 squared plus y squared. And now I have to figure out what -4/3 plus 4 is. I'm going to have to get common denominators, which means I want to rewrite 4 in terms of 3. So the way I rewrite 4 as a number over 3 is I multiply it by the denominator I want. So I do 4 times 3 and I get 12. So that means 4 is the same thing as 12 over 3. So I'm doing -4 over 3 plus 12 over 3. And when we add fractions with common denominators, we just add their numerators. I have -4 plus 12, which is going to give me 8/3. So this is the equation of my circle. And then I know that the radius squared is the 8 over 3, which means my radius is the square root of that. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I get that my radius is the square root of 8 over 3, because that is not a nice number. It is a decimal. So then my diameter is just 2 times that, which is 2 times the square root of 8 over 3. If you want to think about it in terms of decimals, so square root of 8 over 3 is about 1.63. So if I double that, my diameter is about 3.27. Let me know if you have any questions about circles, whether that's writing the equation from a graph, from 2 points, going from general form to standard form, anything related to circles.